Thomas Sowell, Basic Economics, A Citizen's Guide to the Economy. Dive into the world of basic economics and discover the power of free markets in comparison to government-controlled economies. In this summary of Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics, A Citizen's Guide to the Economy, learn about the vital role of prices as messengers of information, how the market determines the real value of goods, and how governments' attempts to control prices often lead to unintended consequences. As you explore the effects of international trade and the importance of comparative advantage, come to appreciate how a clearer understanding of economic fundamentals can help us make better decisions both personally and as part of a broader society.
Free markets versus government-controlled economies. When it comes to achieving economic growth and prosperity, free markets have consistently outperformed government-controlled economies. In the 1960s, neighboring African countries Ghana and Ivory Coast made a bet on which nation would be more prosperous. Despite Ghana's initial advantages in natural resources and wealth, Ivory Coast's embrace of free markets resulted in greater prosperity for its people. This is because free markets use prices to determine the use of resources and distribution of goods, while government-controlled economies rely on politicians or bureaucrats to make these decisions. The author argues that while bombing may cause immediate damage to a city, rent control can cause lasting harm by ignoring basic economic principles. The book makes a case for the benefits of free markets over government intervention in achieving economic success. The message of prices. Prices act as messengers, informing us of the availability or scarcity of resources. High prices of beachfront homes, for instance, reflect the high demand compared to supply. A price cap or free access would not change this fundamental ratio. On the other hand, a new discovery of iron ore would lower steel prices and make steel products more accessible to the public. The adjustments in prices are automatic and do not require knowledge of the resources themselves. The distribution of resources often creates controversy and emotions in society, which the media and politicians thrive upon. The power of prices. The free market system determines prices based on supply, demand, and incentives. Attempts to control prices through government intervention have historically backfired, leading to distortions and imbalances. In The Power of Prices, the author highlights the role that prices play in determining supply and demand for goods in a free market system. Prices serve as incentives that encourage producers to increase supply when demand is high and vice versa. When governments attempt to direct prices using controls, such as price ceilings and floors, they often create market distortions that result in shortages or surpluses. The author provides examples of how attempts to control prices have historically failed. Rent controls implemented in New York, San Francisco, and in several countries led to an increased demand for apartments, sharply increased prices for apartments not covered by the laws, and deterioration in apartment upkeep and maintenance. The author argues that such failures can be attributed to a lack of understanding of the power of prices in the functioning of the market system. Overall, the book emphasizes the importance of a free market guided by fluctuating prices that incentivize efficient production and allocation of resources. The examples provided demonstrate the potential harm of government intervention in markets and the necessity of allowing the market to regulate itself. Lessons from the rise and fall of American retail giants. This passage explores the success stories and ultimate downfalls of major U.S. retailers, J.C. Penney, Sears, and Montgomery Ward. It analyzes the rise of Sam Walton's Walmart chain, attributing his success to an ability to make consumers happy by offering low prices, leaving competitors to try to follow suit or go out of business. The text also highlights the importance of economies of scale in mass production, cautioning against the dangers of companies growing too large to operate efficiently. Ultimately, the passage reminds readers that government policies may have intended goals, but it is the incentives created by those policies that dictate how they will play out in reality. The misleading debate on wages. The debate on wages and salaries is often misleading, as statistics divide society into top and bottom earners, creating the false impression of a zero-sum game. The truth is that earnings are dynamic and reflect changes in society and the economy. Efforts to halt technological advancements and eliminate pay discrepancies only result in lower standards of living overall. The pie is always getting bigger, and earnings determine an individual's place in society. Unfortunately, much of the debate is centered on blaming personal and intentional causes rather than systemic ones, which has detrimental effects on society. As the author urges, it's time to shift the focus from who gets the largest slice of the pie to how to expand the pie for everyone. The complexity of national economy. Understanding the complexity of national economy is vital when developing economic policies. The gross national product and gross domestic product are basic measurements used to determine the annual goods and services produced, but the difficulty in agreeing on these measurements complicates policymaking. Inflation, which is the tendency of prices to rise, is another issue that complicates policymaking. Economists use a basket of goods to calculate inflation rates, but determining which goods are included in the basket can be problematic as prices determine which goods are commonly used. Moreover, fallacy of composition, which assumes that a policy that works for one group works for the entire economy, is a common error made by politicians. Restricting steel imports to protect jobs, for instance, increases steel prices, making American-made products more expensive, resulting in decreased sales and fewer jobs in the long run. Therefore, understanding the difference between systemic and intentional causation is essential when enacting economic policies. International trade as a win-win. The benefits of international trade are often misunderstood to be a zero-sum game, where one country's gain is the other's loss. However, this is not the case. International trade allows goods and services to be produced more efficiently, benefiting consumers. It also leads to the growth of newer, more efficient industries as resources shift from obsolete ones. Protecting less efficient producers only hurts workers and consumers who pay more for worse quality products. The success of international trade hinges on comparative advantage, even if one country can produce everything cheaper than another. Rapid flows of wealth through the international economy hold governments accountable and lead to better management. All in all, international trade benefits both wealthy and poor nations. Basic economics and political debates. The book argues that politicians often overlook economic fundamentals in debates over policies such as rent control and minimum wages. Economic concepts can be used to evaluate the logical implications of policies and their impact on incentives. The book reminds readers that there are consequences to policy choices, and economic understanding can inform decision-making.
Now that you have journeyed through the key concepts of basic economics, you can appreciate how free markets consistently deliver better economic growth and prosperity, as well as the pivotal role that prices play in communicating information about resources and their availability. Become aware of the factors that determine wages and salaries, the challenges in setting government policies, and understanding economic indicators. Recognize the significance of international trade and comparative advantage for both wealthy and poor nations, and finally, realize the importance of understanding the economic implications and consequences of political decisions. Through this knowledge, you can better navigate the complex world of economics and contribute to a more informed conversation in both politics and everyday life.